Hey guys, welcome back. It is your favorite Gimp with a Limp, and I'm here with a video I'm very sad to be making. Update to the one I had done previously, talking about Heroscape, Age of Annihilation, Age of Inflation, as I called it. And I got what I expected to get out of that, which was mixed reactions, right? I expected people to agree. I expected people to disagree. And that's fine. Everyone's going to have their own opinion. And I think a lot of people who disagreed with me on the first one that I did, because I was harsh, and definitely I was harsh on it. I think they disagreed for the same reasons I'm upset and I'm sad about, making this, is that they wanted to see this become a reality. And I'm sorry to say it's not going to happen. So when I had originally done the first video, there was something, forget exactly, maybe 15, 16, 17 days, somewhere around there left before the funding was going to end. And they have to hit 8,000 or they're not going to fund. Here we are, just a few days away, roughly 3 days, and they're not even halfway there. It's not going to happen. Everyone knows they know that it's going to be a failure, and they had actually discussed that fact. The basic gist is that they had spoken some on this issue, some of the people's concerns, and people had numerous concerns over multiple different things. I think they realized relatively quickly that Heroscape, sadly, was not going to fund. And unfortunately, it looks like this one's going back into the vault if it doesn't raise its 2 million goal, which, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen, guys. It's just not. The same issues that I talked about previously still exist. But they did some interviews talking about it, Avalon Hill, Hasbro's reboot. And it says it will be put back in the quote-unquote vault of Hasbro-owned properties and bring up a lot of questions about the game's future if it fails to hit the crowdfunding target of 2,008,000 pledges. And this is what Wargamer is reporting on. If we don't get the pledges for 8,000 backers, then we won't produce this version of Heroscape, this version. Avalon Hill's head of design and development, Chris Nadeau, confirms with this in an interview. And that brings up a lot of questions internally of what do we want to do with Heroscape at this point? It would not obviously be released in this format without 8,000 backers. And it would make us kind of reboot the conversation about, where does Heroscape lie in the portfolio? It talks about how it went live on October 1st, and it's going to close November 15th, one day after my birthday. This would have been a nice birthday gift for me if it hadn't failed so badly. At the time of this interview, it had 3,200. Where is it at now? 3,700. So they get about 500 more. Nadeau tells us this big box terrain-packed Vanguard box is focused a little bit more on the existing Heroscapes with all new factions, additional terrain, and various other changes informed by research Avalon Hill did into the Heroscape community's most wanted features. The longer-term plan, he explains, is to release a more competitive price point starter set and then make the product line a bit more a la carte after the initial crowdfunding to appeal to more new fans. And that's the thing, is they talked about this in the interview. And he says right here, the sky's the limit, because they could do anything with it. Imagine how many IPs have been released since this was originally produced way back in the early 2000s. Forget Dungeons & Dragons. Of course, they were going to have Dungeons & Dragons stuff. But how many other IPs? They could go Western. They could go futuristic. They could do Marvel. They could do anything that video games. Could you imagine God of War, Kratos in this? Anything. Assassin's Creed, Star Wars. The sky really was the limit. But they shot too big out of the gate, right? That was a big thing. And after thinking on it more, reading up some of the comments that you guys talked about, I'm sticking with my original thing. The minis, there was just too many issues with, and everyone pointed out the fact that these are prototype minis. Okay, granted, let's say they're prototype minis and the final production version would be different. Well, your prototype minis are supposed to inspire confidence and excitement in your campaign, and these didn't, right? Regardless of the reason. The painting, if they looked good, if they were enough, if they're not enough, the types that existed, whatever the case may be, they just didn't churn up that excitement for the game itself. So these minis don't work. You combine that with the other points that I made, the fact that we're right here at Christmas. People are having hard years. I know it's been a real hard year for us compared to what we've had previously. We're struggling to make sure ends are meeting and we're going to be able to give the kids a nice Christmas. We can't be the only ones. So if we're having those issues, why are you going to have this huge campaign right at the start of the holidays? I mean, it's ending days before Black Friday when people are going to be doing their shopping. You're asking for a significant portion of their budget to do this, right? For this campaign. And it's not overly exciting prospect, right? It's the stuff people aren't really kind of king about. And here's the thing, there are no pledge levels. This is like a Kickstarter offering only one level and the level's all in, right? Some Kickstarters might be able to get away with that, but I don't think this one could. There are too many people out there like myself. I actually just finished a 6-part Heroscape playthrough series using my original set. I'm going to be uploading it on the channel here soon because it really made me want to pull the game back out. But there are people like me who already have stuff. Why weren't we given the option to just buy some new factions? Maybe some terrain, maybe some of the wall features here they have. Whatever, right? Break it up a little bit. Give people some choice. If they had my suggestion, my thought would have been if they had come in at a price point of something about $150 for a nice set that was unpainted, and then maybe $180 to have the set painted, I think they would have done a lot better. I think they would have had people coming in. Maybe have something to where you could spend $20, $30, somewhere around there, to get the miniatures for a faction and the cards and whatnot, everything you need for it, right? So if you wanted to, you could just do a level to get all the different factions you need. Or if you wanted maybe the factions and some extra pieces of terrain, you could do that. If you want the whole set, you could do that. Give people those choices. You would have had far more backers. It's a lot better to get many more people buying pieces than it is to get a very small amount of people willing to buy the whole thing. I'm happy just to keep my original sets because I don't necessarily need all this, and I certainly can't afford it. Yes, I would have liked to have had it, but I can't afford the amount that they're asking for. Not right now. Hell no. It's just no way in hell. You combine that with everything else. Okay, so the timing's bad. You don't give people any choice, and they chose the wrong platform. Okay? They shouldn't have done it on their HasLab thing. That's their thing. Okay, whatever. You want to try to keep all the profits in-house. I can respect that, but my analogy that I gave to some people who had talked about it, mentioned it in my previous video, was the fact that they essentially decided that they're not going to sell at Walmart, right? They're not going to put their product in the big box store where it's going to catch a lot of traffic and a lot more people are going to see it. They're going to have their tiny little store, their small little store. And relatively speaking, I'm not talking about the amount of product they might churn, but for something like this, I mean, it's known, right? It's a nomenclature of calling something a Kickstarter, even if it's not on Kickstarter. That term means a pledged for game product. It's become very synonymous. So instead of going to the big guys on the block where, yeah, they might take a cut. I don't have any idea what the cut is. I wouldn't assume it'd be more than maybe 5 or 7%. If they were approaching 10, that'd be a little greedy, but let's say for our purposes, it's 5 to 7%. I'm guessing. If you guys know, put it in the comment. Instead of giving them that small piece and having this exposed to so many more eyes, they skipped it. They went to their small store. So they decided to have their mom and pop store selling it versus taking it to Walmart, where everyone's going to see it and be interested and potentially buy it. That could have possibly, would that have gotten them up to the 8,000 backers? Maybe. I think it would have got them a hell of a lot closer. But if you combine everything, this perfect storm that they have, the bad timing, right here at the holidays, people not happy about the minis, regardless if you don't like the fact that they're painted or unpainted. Me, I don't care, but some people really do. The fact that there are no pledge levels, right? It doesn't matter. There's no player choice. You're getting what you're getting. Like I mentioned previously, I don't really care about all these walls, right? I don't care about the trees. They don't mean that much to me. And I've got other stuff I could really use if I want to have some type of terrain on the map. The terrain wasn't as big of a deal for me for a game like Heroscape. Yes, it's going to come into play in many other war games, but Heroscape really isn't it. It's more to do with these hex tiles, right? So all of that put together with the fact that they're selling on their own, it was the perfect storm to cause this to collapse. It's one of the biggest names that I've ever seen fail like this because they didn't hit the numbers that they thought they needed to actually produce the game. Now, I think they should be able to produce the game with roughly 4,000 backers. They're getting about $1 million. That should be more than enough funds for them to make it cost effective, unless there's something off here, something I'm not seeing. Maybe the percentage they wanted as profit, they set too high. I don't know. Maybe you sell this first set at less of a profit. I'm not saying sell it at a loss, but make a little less money on the back end just to get it back into people's hands. So then later on, you can make your profit off those numerous expansions that are going to be coming based off of all the IPs that you could ever potentially make. You could create your own. You could license anything. You could pull from history. People would love that, like war gamers like myself. You could go back to antiquity, pulling different types of historical figures. You wouldn't have to pay royalties to anyone to add numerous expansion packs. And that's not considering all the other types of stuff, the generic IPs that could be added, like Star Wars, Star Trek, Dungeons & Dragons, that type of stuff. In this, I think they overestimated what they had and they got greedy. They thought the name Heroscape was going to sell it on its nostalgia alone. And because of that, they didn't take the steps necessary to really plan this out as well as they could have, and didn't deliver the product that the customer wanted. They delivered the product they wanted the customer to buy, right? Then there's a difference in that. Unfortunately for us, this means that Heroscape is not going to be produced. I'm praying big time, crossing my fingers here, that this does not mean that Heroscape is going back into the vault permanently. There's so much that could be done with it, and I had an absolute blast. Huge amount of fun playing with my old set that I haven't brought out in years. It's just such a fun game. The rules are basic enough to teach your kids. You can play a basic version if you want, or you can play the full-on version with the special features, special rules for all the different types of characters. And it's just a blast. Make a big, large map spread all across your table, or make a small one that goes as high as you want. So many ways to play the game, right? There's so much they could have done with this, and they just did it back-asswards and ended up crushing their own campaign because of it. I think we got to find some way, let them know, maybe keep talking about it, keep making videos, hound them. Hey, Hasbro, we want Heroscape, but we don't want this version of it. We want the version we want of it. We want some options. You need to come in at a price point that will pay. You need to give people, I hate to say this because I don't care about the painted minis, but they got to find a way to do that. There are too many people that want painted minis. And I get that. That's fine. If that's a big selling point for you, that's a big selling point for you. They got to find a way to appease that. There are plenty of people that don't have the ability to paint their own minis and don't want it. And I'm sorry, it seems like no one liked these garish colors. But again, that harks back to well, if these are just stand-ins, why would you have them here? Nobody liked these neon colors. They just don't look good. People didn't care for it. So if this wasn't going to be representative of your final product, why would you put it as your advertising? It was nice to know, though, that they were planning on doing the original versions of the character cards like these, right? Instead of the ones that were in that other picture that I now don't see. Oh, these. Because they were originally switching to something like that. And people did comment and let me know that that was what they were originally going to go to, but they did catch hell over it. So they decided to go back to these original shapes that people do like and were preferring. So yes, release the factions. God, I would love some more factions. I know I've got a huge amount of figures. I want more figures. What I really want is more figures and more terrain, right? I want as much terrain as I can get so I can come up with the craziest maps I can come up with and the weirdest combinations of people fighting each other. I had an awesome match where the Elite Airborne were fighting these swamp monsters and this big chompy dinosaur thing and had a friggin' blast with it. That's what I want more of. They can do it, but they need to do it right. Wait a few months, pull their heads out of their ass, relaunch this thing somewhere around April, May next year after they've revamped things, and give people some choice and offer it at a price point that someone's willing to pay for. I wouldn't mind spending $100 to get some new factions and some new terrain pieces to add to what I've already got. Bam, right? I'll back you. Just don't try to force hold and pigeonhole me into a bunch of stuff that I don't want at a price point I can't afford. I don't know. We'll have to see. It's sad. It is what it is. Just remember in 3 days, put your flags at half-mast because Heroscape has been taken out. It has sadly rolled snake eyes and been destroyed. It's unfortunate, but hopefully it will rise like the phoenix and come up from the ashes and be reborn into a better edition. Instead of Age of Inflation, what they went with, we'll have something better. Cross our fingers. All right, you guys take care. I'll catch you in the next one.